I'd like to thank everybody, invited guests, Minister, invited guests and Positive Age members to the event today. It's important for Positive Age because it's a gigabit broadband. It's a thing that we've been striving for quite a while, to be able to help older people stay up with the modern world. People think that because it's a retirement village that's the final destination or the runway for people, but we're proving that it's not. It's only the bar in the airport or whatever, that we're here to enjoy ourselves. Francis O'Callaghan is the first speaker. Francis is the founder member of Positive Age and has brought it from its initial stages in 2000 in 1988 to the present. So we're calling Francis O'Callaghan to talk about the background of Positive Age.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to have the Minister Humphreys here with us and all our invited guests, and in particular all our Positive Age people, which at the end of the day is what we've always been about. 1988 to 2018. Little did I think when I joined Billy Davey and Kathleen Shorten in 1988 to establish Positive Age, then called Age and Opportunity, that 30 years later I would be standing here still promoting the same concepts, still trying to sell the idea of positive attitudes for us all as we embrace each stage of our lives. Henry Ford famously said, "Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young." Over the years I have met 80-year-olds with the minds of 20-year-olds, but I've also met 20-year-olds with the minds of 80-year-olds. So it really is all about our approach and our attitudes. In 1988, people retired from work, from rearing a family or caring in one way or another, and generally became inactive and socially excluded. A national drive by the government at that time to change attitudes to ageing and to change negative attitudes about growing older across all of society saw the establishment of Positive Age in Cavan and Monaghan and of many other bodies right across Ireland. We have come a long way. When we began in 1988, we very quickly realised that older people were firstly reluctant to get involved, but if they did, they had a wealth of talent, skills and experience that society could benefit from, but that was totally unrecognised. From crafts, music, song and dance, to ability to establish and run committees and clubs at local level, older people were indeed in a position to make a huge contribution, not only to themselves, but to society in general. From Go for Life programmes to Bealtaine festivals, to education classes in several fields, to conferences, shows and performances of all kinds, we have over the 30 years established a huge number of speakers, poets, singers, musicians, dancers, historians, artists and comedians. It is very true that everyone, and I emphasise everyone, has some skills and talents that are recognised, valued and appreciated within Positive Age. To all those who have over the years involved themselves at whatever level, we say well done. We are delighted you are enjoying what you are doing and keep doing it. There are indeed all kinds of people, those for the stage, those for group activities only, those only for travel, those to lend their hands and expertise in the catering end of what we do. Everyone is welcome and we sincerely hope feels welcome and valued and are making and keeping friends along the way. In 1988 we started with a week in May, hoping for some interest so older people could display their crafts and become socially involved. By the 90s we had set up social clubs. These were local based and served as feeding hubs. With numbers increasing, we recruited volunteers and went from strength to strength. These clubs became the social daycare centres of today and are a huge benefit to communities at local level. 1996 saw the establishment of the Bealtaine Festival in Ireland. Positive Age was one of the very first groups to run the festival in both Monaghan and Cavan. 96 also saw our very first trip abroad. We travelled to Amsterdam, where we experienced the culture, met a similar group of older people and visited the red light district. This first trip was the result of a widow woman coming into my office and explaining the problem of older people having no one to travel with and not having the confidence to undertake seeing new places. In the following years, we went on to visit faraway places like Brussels, Paris, Prague, Helsinki, Krakow, Berlin, Romania, Slovenia, Denmark and Italy, to name a few. This year, we have organised a trip to Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Ras Al Khaimah in the Middle East. This trip booked out within 10 days of advertising. This shows that older people, although they may not wish to make travel arrangements or travel alone or in small numbers, they no longer want to miss out on opportunities to travel, to learn and to experience. We had secured some extra seats this year, but they have been allocated. We also had a number of cancellations, but they are also filled, and we currently have a waiting list. It is amazing how travel broadens the experiences and educates people at all ages and stages of their lives. The United Nations declared 1999 as the International Year of Older Persons. With small funding from this programme, Positive Age established the Older Men's Organisation of Ireland in an effort to address the fact that older men had little involvement in social situations. Groups were set up in Northern Ireland, Cork and Tipperary, as well as Cavan and Monaghan, and many older men gained education and training, as well as social outings and trips both in Ireland and the UK. 2008 saw the establishment of the Good Morning programme in Cavan, Monaghan and Meath. This programme has been instrumental in retaining older people in their own homes. A friendly voice at the end of the phone gently establishes if a person is feeling okay, if they have medical or other appointments to attend, and if everything is generally good with them. We in Positive Age have spent 30 years arguing the impact of social gain on health gain. In the first decade, statutory bodies thought this was a ridiculous concept, and old managerial styles did not comprehend or accept it. However, in 1998, the National Council on Ageing and Older People, along with the Health Promotion Unit of the Department of Health, published a report, A Health Promotion Strategy for Older People, Adding Years to Life and Life to Years. I consider this to have been the first breakthrough in Ireland. It was the first time that government acknowledged the huge positive impact that social activities of all types had on the health and well-being of older people in this country. It was the first time that we weren't just discussing mortality rates and life expectancy figures at 60 or 65. Now we were actually talking about adding life to years and how those years gained through better food, better housing, better facilities and hospital and community services could now be enjoyable and fulfilled times for the whole population. Tom Moffat, who was then Minister of State for Older People, acknowledged that health promotion programmes for older people and the settings in which they are provided must take account of the physiological, social and economic changes which are associated with ageing and which are often beyond the control of older people themselves. Programmes also need to take account of the fact that many key determinants of health for older people are outside the healthcare sector. This we consider a major breakthrough. Health promotion for older people now included active living, social connections and educational programmes. Although at this stage we have been promoting and doing this for 10 years, the benefits were largely unrecognised. This report also clarified that health promotion for older people has an important role to play in reducing the disabling effects of illness among those who are already ill. It was accepted then that measures which enable older people to remain mentally and physically active and to participate in the wider community are essential for improving quality of life. Each organisation has key people that it cannot operate without, and I would like to mention the people who keep the wheels rolling, often behind the scenes. Firstly, Maisie Smith. Maisie has been with Positive Age since 1997. I am not exaggerating when I say we could not manage without her. She does so much work at home and here. She encourages, welcomes, teaches and preaches when necessary. I also want to mention Desi Ronan. Desi has been with us since we set up in 1988. He has played at each and every function we have ever had. He has been on each and every trip with us, both in Ireland and across Europe. Desi entertains, helps with wheelchairs, befriends, engages and includes everyone in some way. Margaret Basmajan has been instrumental in promoting and running the Good Morning programme for the past 10 years. Her diligence and dedication to the clients, volunteers and the organisation itself is unsurpassed. I want also to acknowledge Tim Moan, who has run the programme in Monaghan, and Eva Farrell, who is responsible for the Meath service. In particular, I want to thank the volunteers, many of whom are here today. Without our Good Morning volunteers, this service would not operate. It is seldom we get the opportunity to have many of them together to truly say how much their time and dedication is appreciated. I want to mention the many and various people who have sat on committees over the years, our current committee members, those who attended events on our behalf, spoke at conferences and shared their experience and talents so that we all can learn as we move forward. Personally, I can honestly say that I have thoroughly enjoyed my involvement over the last 30 years. I have had the privilege of meeting and getting to know a huge number of people and making many friends. Life is a journey, and being involved with Positive Age to date has greatly enriched my journey. That journey would not have been possible for me or for Positive Age without the help and goodwill of many organisations and people that have supported and assisted us along the way. I want to acknowledge the support of the Health Service Executive, and in particular to mention those who supported and funded us from the beginning: Billy Davey, Aidan Brown, Josephine Collins, and currently Rose Mooney, and I also want to mention Sinead Daly for her assistance. I want to thank Cavan County Council, and in particular Emma Coveney, for her support. I want to thank Monaghan County Council for support over the years, especially with our cross-border initiatives. I want to thank originally the VEC and now Cavan Monaghan Education and Training Board for their support with our education programmes. I want especially to thank FOSS, which is now the Department of Social Protection, for their support and staff provided by the programme. In particular, I want to mention Siobhan Finnegan for her help over the years and her ongoing support. Without the community employment staff provided, we would not be able to survive. I also want to thank Cavan Lions Club for their ongoing and continued support, and the Rugby Club Choir, who very often support us and help us out. I want to thank the management of the Community Centre here, who are very supportive, and I want particularly to mention Pádraig, who is here today and who we call on when everything goes wrong or anything goes wrong. I want to say thanks very much, Pádraig. By 2030, 1 in 5 of us will be over 65. It doesn't matter how society refers to us. We could be old, or just older, pensioners, elderly, senior citizens, or silver surfers. Whether growing old gracefully or disgracefully, Positive Age wants to ensure that everyone has the chance to grow old safely, creatively, physically and mentally active, and socially included. I would like to finish with Mark Twain's famous quote that we could all try to remember: "Age is an issue of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter." Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frances. An inspiration to the volunteers within Positive Age and the Positive Age members. Now, Philomena Smith, she's a regular traveller with us abroad. She would do 3 pages of a report on all the trips she attends. A fantastic person. And now she's going to recall her experiences of working in the communications field from the early stage up until the development of the fibre broadband. So we call on Philomena Smith to talk about her life with Positive Age.
I better get up here and see what the heck's about.
Because I made that podium.
Oh, good for you. You're thinking about me. From candlelight to fibre optic light. Well, I was born in 1929 and I should have been on the candlelight road. Ireland at that time was a very primitive, underdeveloped country. The effects of the Civil War of 1932 were still keenly felt, especially by the farmers. There was no market open for their livestock or their produce. Farmers are the backbone of this agricultural country, and when the farmer is down, everyone feels the effects. Another disaster hit Ireland in 1939 when World War II was declared. Severe restrictions were put on all the basic commodities. Ration books were issued to every household. Half an ounce of tea, half a pound of sugar, 4 ounces of butter per person was the allowance. Bread and flour was also rationed, but living on the farm that was more or less self-sufficient at the time, we were able to supplement the meagre rations with the home produce. Farmers had their own cattle, sheep and pigs. The cows supplied the milk and the buttermilk to make the bread. Fields of potatoes and vegetables were grown. Wheat and corn was also grown. So we had the wheat meal for the bread and the oatmeal for the porridge. There was also a severe shortage of paraffin oil for the lamp, 1 quart per household per month. I remember we had to go from a double burner lamp to a little contraption that my dad made. He filled a small bottle with paraffin oil and he pulled a wick up through its cork and he hung it near the fire. My dad read the celt, my mother did her knitting, and we did our homework with that little glimmer of light. In my school days, education came to a full stop at 14 years. I attended a 1-room, 2-teacher school with 1 fireplace. Excuse me. The junior teachers plus infants 1st and 2nd class faced the fire. The master and the other classes faced the opposite direction. We were often reminded how fortunate we were to have such an up-to-date modern school. That school was built in 1901. The school that preceded that one was an old hayloft over a cowshed. So, while the teacher and the pupils were holding classes in the loft, the cows were feeding contentedly down below and doing what cows normally do. Education was very low down on the list of priorities for us rural children. Secondary or comprehensive schools were unheard of at that time. May the light of heaven shine on Donagh O'Malley, who provided free secondary education and free transport for all children of the nation. Coothill Comprehensive was one of the first opened by Donagh O'Malley in 1966. Sadly, Donagh died 2 years later. Employment opportunities were few and far between in the Ireland of that time. If a boy or a girl went to serve an apprenticeship in a shop or to a trade, they worked for bed and board and 5 shillings per week. Large families were reared in the small thatched cottages, so it's no wonder the emigrant ships to England, Scotland and America were loaded with generations of our brightest and best young people. Education opened up a whole new world for rural men and women. Women form 50% of the voting population of the country. Remember, it was only in 1918 that the women of Ireland got the right to vote, but they had to be over 30 years of age. That wasn't the only discrimination against women. If one was employed as a teacher, a nurse or in the civil service, one had to resign their job on marriage. That law came in 1953 and eventually, after a long and bitter battle to treat all citizens of the nation with equality, irrespective of gender. After 23 years, that bitter battle was finally rescinded in 1976. However, that bitter battle didn't extend to equal pay, but that was a battle for another day. Mary Burke, when she was elected to the Seanad in 1969, she immediately planted the seed for the anti-discriminatory laws against women be revised. She also stated at that time that women had to have their husband's signature to open bank accounts, take out insurance, or any other financial transactions. She said in the Seanad that women had the same right as infants in Irish law. Work commenced on the rural electrification of our area in the 1950s. At that time, all work was done manually. Now for you young people, that meant the pick and the spade to dig the holes to get the poles into the ground. The actual switch on happened in 1957. I worked on the home farm until 1956 when I married a farmer, so I can speak with some authority on the role of farm women. The great affluence that our country is now enjoying is because of the contribution that successive generations of farm women made to the running and expansion of the small rural holding into the business-like enterprise that it is today. Through the nature of our work, we were a totally invisible workforce. Till the second half of the last century, it was unheard of for foreign women to have paid employment outside the home. What brought about that change? Education. I became a widow in 2000 and I retired from farming. A dear friend encouraged me to join Positive Age. Well, what a blessing that was for me. It was like the secondary school education that I never had. They were doing many different classes and going to many different countries that I would have only seen on the map. I never expected to see any of them. I started with a creative writing class with Heather Brett. I really enjoyed that class and I took care of one half day each week. When that was over, Maisie rang me one morning to see would I be interested in doing a computer class. Now Maisie, why would I do a computer class? I never was out in the workforce in my life and I sure won't be going out now. Well, think about it, she said. Well, I thought about it and I called Maisie and I told her I would be there. Well, when I went into that room in St. Phelim's on the Monday morning, there was 12 people around the table. I recognised 3 teachers and 2 nurses. My first reaction was, what in God's name took me in here with all these educated people? Pat, our instructor, he welcomed us all to the class and he asked if any of us had any technological experience. Well, there was dead silence. I spoke up and I said, Pat, I can change the channels on the TV and I can use the phone, so that's the total of my technological experience, so you know where I'm starting from. Well, I beavered away with that computer because the feet doesn't rest comfortably on my shoulders. I got to the stage now where I can email, Skype, text and messenger to my family and friends around the world. The first year I joined Positive Age in 2002, we went to Budapest. And every successive year since then, I have travelled across Europe with Positive Age. I have been to Poland, Athens, Croatia, Istanbul, Switzerland, Helsinki, Italy, Berlin, Slovenia, Latvia, Lithuania and Stockholm, Bratislava and Vienna, France, Amsterdam, and in 2017 we went to Fatima and Lisbon. This year it's Dubai and Abu Dhabi. The most attractive part of these trips is Positive Age organises everything right down to the very last detail. You pay your money and make sure your passport is up to date, and that's it. Positive Age caters for the older men's organisation also, so we go on a break each spring with them to some place in Ireland, England or Scotland. Education, electrification and Positive Age are the 3 main building blocks that have enabled me to travel that road from candlelight to fibre optic light. It has been a very rewarding journey. Still, God willing, I have no plans for retiring just yet.
Thank you, Philomena. You can see why we take Philomena with us on the continent, because she charms all the people on the continent. Now, what do we say about Tommy Smith? Tommy is involved with practically everything we organise. If there was a row at the crossroads, the Gardaí would call the Tommy rather than the people to find out what's going on. So we call on Tommy Smith to recall his time working with Positive Age from candlelight to fibre optic light. Tommy Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I don't know what I have to say after all that, because I go back to my young days at school. When I came home from school, But generally, my father was a postman, and he generally had 2 or 3 or maybe 4 telegrams to be delivered. And you started off from the Lavey Inn and you went to Terralahad. And you went from Terralahad to Knockathaggart. And you went from Knockathaggart over as far as Mountain Lodge and a little beyond. And the transport at that stage was Shanksmayer. And everybody was wondering why, oh God, you're very light on your foot all the time. So when you started off light on your foot, you still have to keep light on your foot. But when I went and delivered the telegrams, I ended up in Mountain Lodge, going into a house, and the telegram was opened. It was dark, they got a candle and they couldn't read the telegram. So we scrambled around it and we got the telegram read. What has happened was some people come from America. And after all that, I headed back home walking. Come home to do the homework at home for the school, or the school homework, whatever had to be done. And it was candlelight again that it had to be done to, and they were saying that if you had any good light, it would destroy your eyesight. So I don't know whether the candlelight or the good light destroyed my eyesight, but I still have eyesight. I'm still managing to get around without specs at the minute. But my experience of joining Positive Age after all that was that maybe give you a phone call or somebody that there had to be something done. And I often wondered why they bothered with me at all, because I didn't know very much as a matter of translation. I was on the road most of the time, delivering the good news and the bad news to the people of all Ireland and or all of the parishes around us. So I haven't any more to say, only that I'm still communicating with people and trying to get people together at this stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tommy. We have some water for the speakers, if you wish, here, because of the conditions on today. Now, our next speaker is Patsy Smith. Patsy has represented us at numerous conferences and exhibitions. We're proud to be associated with Patsy, and Patsy's going to recall his experience of from candlelight to fibre optic light. Ladies and gentlemen, Patsy Smith.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this sounds like a whole Smith outfit with all Smith speakers up here. Anyway, I just want to say a few things about when I was growing up, especially at national school, when, as it's said, is from candlelight to optic fibre light. When I was pretty young, I was born in 1938, so had a great experience of poor conditions in Ireland at the time I was growing up. As you know, the Second World War was in full swing. Even though it started the year after I was born, it wasn't really my fault. But anyway, we struggled to get the simplest of things for the necessity of living at the time. Now, candles and lamp oil were the most important thing as far as light was concerned at that time. Lamp oil was, as has already been said, very, very scarce, and candles were quite hard to come by as well. And I had an old grand-aunt who improvised by making candles from rushes. She would strip the green of the rush and reveal the spongy inside, and would roll it in bacon grease and make, as she called it, a rush candle. Now that was placed in a container of it like bottle shape that it would hold it direct, and that was used for light in the houses at the time. Now my mother, she knitted, she crocheted, she mended all our clothes with the help of candlelight or the rush candle at the time. Now, it has been a big change since then. When my mother was writing letters, them all had to be done again with candlelight. When I say them all, there were very few. Now, she was part of a big family originally. Two of her brothers and a sister emigrated to America, and 4 more of our family emigrated to England, and she had 2 cousins who emigrated to Australia as nuns. Now, she would write to them with the use of candlelight and a pencil about the length of my finger, because you had to keep the pencil for as long as you possibly could to use. She would write, but unfortunately at that time it took about 6 weeks to get a letter from Ireland to America. Now, naturally enough, there'd be a long, long wait before there was any reply from that. And it ended up that by maybe twice a year she would write, at Christmas, at Easter, and maybe by nearly the middle of March she would get a reply to some of them letters. Now, that was all done again under the light of a candle, or later on lamplight. Now, as has already been said, there was improvision made as well, where we made what we called a bottle lamp. It was a small wee bottle about the size of my hand, and there was an oil put in it and a wick put in it, and it was used as the light. And all the ladies in the country at that time, they knitted, crocheted, and they all read the Celt, as it was the only paper available then, and with the light of that. Now, the Celt was usually read by my mother in our house, because you couldn't put in the whole night handing it from one to another and the candle as well to read it. So again, that was some of the problems they had. Now, they survived them all. They were self-sufficient. They could improvise, and they always got by. Now, today it's a different story. As I said about our 2 cousins nuns in Australia, she never could correspond with them, because, as she said, there's no point in writing to Australia, they'll never get it anyway. So she never even heard from those from they went to Australia. But nowadays, all you have to do is take out your mobile phone and text a message to any part in the world, which gets there instantly, and you have an instant reply. You know whether they're dead or alive, or how they're doing. You also can, if you're available to you, is Skype, where you can talk personally to somebody. Now, as I said, those 2 nuns, she never saw their faces again from they said goodbye to her going to Australia. But nowadays, we have friends in Australia, and you can go on Skype and talk personally to them and see them smiling and laughing at the comments you made. So that's the big strides we have made in Ireland from the early 1940s up now till 2018. And today, as they launched this Fibre Optics here in the community centre, it's one of the further step to have everything available online, on your phone, on your iPad, on your screen. And again, it's something that progress is made. So at my age, I often wonder, where will it all stop? You could not believe that I could talk to somebody in Australia and see them smiling and laughing when I was 10 or 12 years of age. So it's great to see the launch here today of the fibre optics for this area. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Patsy. Working with statutory bodies is very important for our positive age, and you heard Francis mention the working relationship we have with Cavan County Council and of course Monaghan County Council. But Dr. Emer Coveney has been a great person for us to work with. She understands what the programme is about and has assisted us, and we have worked with them for a good number of years. So we call upon Dr. Emer Coveney from Cavan County Council to say a few words.
Hello everyone, it's really wonderful to be here today in the Positive Age Centre and to see that it's been selected as a hub for high-speed broadband for older people. Positive Age has been very active all over the years in providing computer courses for older people and engaging older people in a variety of programming that keeps them active and involved in their communities. So this development has a really important social inclusion dimension. Without access to IT skills and up-to-date technology, older people are at risk of becoming isolated and finding it more difficult to access services because everything is increasingly delivered online. Developing Castlemanor as a digital hub will significantly impact on older people's ease of using the internet and their ability to stay connected and access the information and products that they need to maintain a good quality of life. Our population is ageing nationally and internationally, and this means that the proportion of older people in our population is increasing year on year. In Cavan, in the last census alone, it showed an increase of 18% in the number of older people, people aged 65 plus, increased by 18% in a 5-year period. And this is a trend that we will expect to continue seeing in Ireland and across the world. And it's a good news story because people are living longer and healthier lives. But we need to adjust services so that we can take account of the fact that people, as they age, will have differing needs in that. In Cavan Town, there was also a big jump in the number of older people. There are 1,300 people 1,300 people aged 65 plus in the town. And since Positive Age offers their services to all older people, this means that there's potentially over 1,000 older people who could be using the services and the facilities here with the new digital hub here. I work with the Cavan Age Friendly Alliance. This is an alliance of statutory organisations. We have the senior managers from the ETB and the HSE and the council and other partners as well, like the GAA, are all involved and have committed actions in the Cavan Age Friendly strategy. We're now on our second strategy. I see our Cathaoirleach is here today, Councillor Madeleine Argue, and she also sits on the Cavan Age Friendly Alliance, and indeed all of the elected members in Cavan County Council are extremely supportive of age-friendly work and the work that we do to support older people in the community. We would have delivered various actions under the first age-friendly strategy around kind of computer training and that, and we're luckily at the stage now where the older people involved in the Older People's Council are looking for more advanced courses. They've done the basic training and that, so Positive Age will now be able to facilitate with them, moving on to different types of training and iPad training and all of that as well. We have many partners in the Age Friendly Alliance, and we're all trying to take steps to support the social inclusion of older people, and one of the ways to do that is to address this digital divide, and everything that you're doing here is an extremely welcome development for the community. So just to say that I wish you well in this project and hope to continue the good working relationship that we have through the Age Friendly Alliance and Cavan County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Emer. And our next speaker, when Stephen said that he was thinking of the installation of the fibre, I would have in a techie background, I would like a young child outside a sweet shop, because it was such a joy to me to know that we're getting gigabit broadband in for our members here in Positive Age. So, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen O'Connor, and Stephen has a little video that is the origins of the ESB and then similarly on the SIRO broadband. So we might just play the video thanks to Seamus, and Stephen then will talk. Thank you. Stephen O'Connor, ladies and gentlemen, from SIRO.
It was a moment that changed everything. Electricity at the flick of a switch. But who'd have thought we could use that same idea to change life all over again? This is SIRO, light-powered gigabit broadband that comes straight into your home or business. using these. So you get SIRO here.
Very sunny there. Look over here.
Here.
God, it's like a madhouse.
Even here. Isn't it amazing how the best ideas are always the simple ones? SIRO, powered by light.
Thanks, Brian. Elected representatives, Minister Francis, and members and friends of Positive Age, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much, I suppose, for inviting us to come along to your birthday party. You're 30 years old, and I have to say we're delighted to be here. We are in Cavan for 3 years now, and 3 years ago there was an idea in ESB. I mean, you'd all be familiar with ESB and your electricity lines, and they brought you some of those scenes from rural electrification that you saw in the video, and some of our guest speakers spoke about when electrification came to their village back in the 40s and the 50s. Well, the idea from SIRO was that ESB and Vodafone got together and they said, well, you know, telecommunications used to be delivered over copper wires, and we're all familiar with the telephone wires that you'd see around the town. And those telephone wires were absolutely fine for the last 90 years, when all we wanted to do was speak to people down the phone. Copper worked very well. Nowadays, people want to do very, very different things. They want to have video calls. They want to Skype the grandchildren down in Australia. They want to send large files. They want to watch videos over those same lines. And the copper lines just do not have that capacity. So the material that does have that capacity is called fibre optic, which is a glass tube. So the ESB and Vodafone got together and said, I wonder, could we put fibre optic wires on the existing electricity poles? Would that work? And thereby enabling the telecommunication experience of people in regional towns around Ireland to leapfrog and to be equivalent to the internet computer experience that is enjoyed in places like Tokyo and Hong Kong. And the group, I was involved in it back at the time, we researched it, we went around the world, we looked at where this had been done, and we said, yeah, we think we can do this. And sure, we have the poles. And that was kind of the motto of the group back in ESB. You know, we have all these poles. There's an electricity wire on them. Let's just put an extra wire on it and see what happens. So we came to Cavan 3 years ago. Cavan was our first town, and we had to prove that this worked. So we did our technical trial here in Cavan, and the reason we picked Cavan was, firstly, the local ESB guys here were great. Cavan County Council were great. We went up to them, we told them what we were doing. Ger Finn was acting as CEO at the time. The minister was very supportive, the council was very supportive, and we rolled it out to 300 homes in 3 estates, Ardkeen, Rocklands and Knocknaskerry. And at the end of that trial we said, actually, this works. First of all, we can build it. Secondly, we can get it into people's homes. Thirdly, it works. And fourthly, people like it. So we think we have a business. That was 3 years ago. We now have a network of 170,000 homes spread across 30 regional towns in Ireland. And we have transformed the internet experience of people in those towns. But Cavan was always our first town. And it was great for me to be back here again 3 years later, sharing a platform again with the Minister 3 years later, and seeing some of the elected representatives that were in the council chamber 3 years ago when we launched this. Cavan will always have a special, very special place within SIRO. So, as part of our rollout into towns, we like to pick a community hub or a business hub that we'd like to partner with, that we'd like to work with. The Cavan hub today here is our 8th of these hubs. The first 7 have been business hubs. They've been typically aimed at SMEs, startups, somewhere where people who've got a business idea can come along and launch a business. This is our first community hub, and when I was approached by Brian about this, I just thought this is a fantastic project, and I couldn't get over the fact, firstly, you've been going 30 years, secondly, the fact that you were offering computer classes 18 years ago in 2000. So you must have some very, very far-seeing people who were offering classes that far away. And I suppose that really appealed to me because there's 2 things. People spoke earlier about the digital divide in Ireland, and that typically refers to good computer services in Dublin and weaker services outside of Dublin. But there's another digital divide that's just as important, and that is
the experience and skills of sections of society. Some people are very computer savvy and can do all the things that the panellists spoke about. They can Skype, they can send email, they can book flights. But there are still large parts of Ireland where people don't have those digital skills. And the Central Statistics Office, the CSO, in 2017 reckoned in the group between age 60 and 75, of that cohort, 40% of them have never used the internet. So, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done here. In SIRO, ourselves, ESB, Vodafone, we provide the plumbing, we provide the network. That's all we do. What it needs is, it needs education services, digital skills courses, and it needs people like Positive Age who actually want to teach people how to use these things, because there's no point in having a world-class internet service if it isn't being used. And that's what we're marrying here today, is an absolutely world-class internet service. If you owned a bank in Hong Kong, you would have the same internet connectivity that you have here. And that's what you would need. You have a 1 gigabit connection. I won't blind you with the technicals, but it is like having a motorway coming into your front room and you used to have a dirt track. That is what it is. It is incredibly powerful. And it is very, very exciting. It is like, I remember studying in school, having the Encyclopedia Britannica, you know, and we had a huge one in the house, and whatever school project I did, I had to dig it out and look up Italy, look up the Mezzogiorno, look up the Second World War, and it was fine. I learned a lot from that. The internet has that available to you at your desk. You can research your favourite composers, you can watch news from around the world. My mother, who's 83, the first thing she does in the morning, she watches the Irish Times on her iPad. She checks the bridge results in Mount Merrion where she plays. She gives out that certain people have won the bridge. My dad, at 82, did his first computer course and was absolutely delighted when his grandchildren started sending him emails from internet cafes in South America. Absolutely fantastic. It opened up their worlds, and it's brilliant to see people here are having the same experience. So congratulations to you. You've had 30 years, and I'm sure you'll be around for another 30 years, and I can't wait to see what you do with the service that we've provided.
Thank you very much, Stephen. You can see from our display here, we have thanks to Expert on the Dublin Road in Cavan. I hope you can support them because they support us today. We have a smart TV, meaning that fully accessible online, and a standard PC, laptops, tablets and mobile phones. All can be used simultaneously, because it was almost like the shower at home when people saying, oh, you can't use internet because such and such needs it. With this fibre-class gigabit broadband, every device can be on simultaneously, so there's no rows or nobody going off in a huff at home. So, and the grandchildren can work with people. So it's an unbelievable asset when people use it properly. Our next speaker, everybody knows because she's native to the area, Heather Humphreys, renowned debater, in fact, a national champion in debating. So we met at the comprehensive school reunion, as you recall, so we now know why she's so good. And it's very important, this portfolio that she has now, because with Brexit, the need for business and enterprise. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call on Heather Humphreys, TD, Minister for Business, Enterprise and Innovation. Thank you very much, Heather Humphreys.
Thank you, Brian, and first of all, Cahir of Cavan County Council, Madeleine Argue. Madeleine, you're fairly new elected, so I want to wish you well in your term as Mayor. Deputies Niamh and Brendan Smith, Senator Diarmuid Wilson, and I bring apologies from Senator Joe O'Reilly, who unfortunately can't be here today. Councillors, Reverend, ladies and gentlemen, and it gives me great pleasure to be here today to mark this important occasion for Positive Age Cavan. I want to say thank you to Brian, to Francis and to Maisie for the kind invitation to attend, and I would like to start by paying tribute to the staff, the volunteers and the members for the wonderful work that you do here in Cavan and Monaghan. And I know that this year you're celebrating a big birthday as you mark 3 decades of working here in this region. As Francis has outlined, over the years you have built up an extremely impressive legacy of great work in our communities And for that, I say thank you. And also, I want to just say that you should be very proud of yourselves. The title of today's event is From Candlelight to Fibre Optic Light, which puts me in mind of a quote from William Shakespeare. How far that little candle throws his beams, so shines a good deed in a weary world. Without a doubt, this epitomises the work of Positive Age Cavan, as you provide the older people of Cavan and Monaghan with invaluable support, both practical and social. Whether a volunteer or a member, you have lit a candle in many lives, including your own, by engaging with the organisation. And I have to say, Philomena, I was counting how many places you'd been. I think it was close to 20. So I suppose I could say here, join Positive Age and see the world. But back to the topic of the day, which I've been asked to speak about, namely the benefits of fibre broadband to rural communities. In our living memory, developments in technology have brought huge changes to our lives. Rural electrification, as Michael has mentioned, meant we no longer relied on candles to light our homes, and telecommunications brought convenience to every aspect of our lives. And especially when you look at the mobile phone now and you look at the phone that we had 30 or 40 years ago. And considering the massive developments, even in the last 5 to 10 years, there is no doubt about it. We are living in the technological revolution, and we really have to embrace it. I was in a company in Galway about a month ago. It's a med tech company, and the CEO there said, we have not developed the product that we will be manufacturing in 5 years' time. So that's how fast things are changing. It is absolutely unbelievable. And of course, Positive Age here in Cavan has been a leader in this area in terms of engaging with technology and offering computer classes to its members now for some time. But the organisation decided to go that extra mile by securing fibre optic broadband for the centre. So well done to Brian and to Michael in delivering the fibre optic broadband to here. Without a doubt, this was an excellent decision, which was driven by some very open and willing older people with an appetite to stay connected in this digital world. And I just want to say to Philomena, to Tommy and to Patsy, thank you for sharing your stories and giving us an insight into life. I'm going to have to say in the last century, really. And Philomena, your account of the journey Irish women have travelled and the important role that they have played in our society, I think is very poignant in this year that as we commemorate 100 years since women got the vote, and as Philomena said, albeit limited at the time, but it certainly improved as the years went on. So it has been quite a journey for many of the people in this room, migrating from writing letters by candlelight to sending emails and streaming videos by fibre optic light. And as Patsy said, he never thought he'd see the day. So there it is, it is here. Access to high-speed broadband brings more than access to the internet. It is a lifeline for people and communities, especially in rural areas. The internet might seem daunting to those with no previous experience of computers and technology, but I am confident that by embracing these changes, we can maximise the benefits to rural communities. And clearly this is something you have embraced here at Positive Age in Cavan, acting as an example to other groups in the rest of the country. Online communities help to strengthen and grow existing communities, bring people together, reducing isolation and increasing social cohesion. Crucially, high-speed broadband can be very beneficial to older or more vulnerable people living alone or in isolated areas. On the one hand, it can help them to participate in community events from a distance, be it live updates from the Saturday football match or streaming a local religious service on a Sunday. It also facilitates digital skills in older populations, creating a whole new generation of silver surfers. And I know there are several of those here in the room already, leading the charge in this new revolution and bucking more than a few stereotypes. On the other hand, high-speed broadband also has the potential in the health space. There are cases where an older person has been monitored by a medical practitioner remotely, allowing for greater peace of mind for that person and their family. It also helps people stay in touch, as has been said, with friends and family wherever they may be, sharing videos and photographs and communicating in real time with video calls. There are also benefits in terms of lifelong learning, because a good interconnection allows for distance learning, and that's without even mentioning the benefits to businesses and entrepreneurs, of course, in case there's anyone in this room who's looking to forfeit retirement. So I'm absolutely delighted that Positive Age Cavan now has SIRO fibre broadband installed in this centre for social gain, and it's only right and proper that older people have access to the same technological advances as the rest of the population. Congratulations once again to the staff and the volunteers for taking on this exciting initiative, and to the members for embracing new technology with open arms. And as Teresa said at the start, age is a case of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Heather. I'd like to thank the Anglo Self for their attendance today. Our journalists taking notes, and also I got a phone call this morning from Kieran Mullooley to send his apologies because RTE has no Northeast correspondent, and he said that he's only in the Northeast unless there's Murders or something. So it passed very quickly, so it did. We weren't going to run that line. So we have a few presentations. So we'd call on Celia Wickham and Marie Lynch to make a presentation to Heather. Stand nice and close together, ladies. And we'll call upon Seamus to make a presentation to our three speakers. We have vouchers from Easton for...
Small presentation to both Philomena, to Patsy and to Thomas here. They contributed very, very much to our SIRO information that we have here today. Is absolutely fantastic, and what is what we call from darkness into light, brought new technology. And I have to say, SIRO, we will certainly make fantastic use of this. And I have to say to these people here, they are the people, and in this room here as well, that will actually provide new technology throughout, and more people to come on board and get training. Again, thank you all, and I'm going to make the presentation. Philomena, thank you so much.
And of course a voucher from Easton Cavan. Easton Cavan are very supportive to us because they provide the birthday cards and Christmas greeting cards with the Good Morning service. So Pacelli Lynch, thanks very much.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we just have one final presentation. Could we have Maisie up, please? Brian's just going to make a presentation to Maisie in recognition of her many, many years with Positive Age, and as I said earlier, we definitely couldn't do without her. Thanks very much, Maisie.
That's Maisie. It was a great pleasure that we give you these flowers in appreciation of all your hard work. And it is true that we'll have to turn around for Seamus and
back to the stage.
Maisie Smith, for your loyal and dedicated service, and all the people that you contact regularly to go on all our trips and all, or it wouldn't work without Maisie Smith. So ladies and gentlemen, Maisie Smith. as unusual, she's not that shy, so she's not.
Yeah. Well, I'm stuck for words, not always, but sometimes when I see a crowd of lovely looking faces looking up at me here, I get stuck for words. But anyway, thanks very much to the Positive Age people for saying nice words about me, and of course I have to thank all my friends down there who started off with computers back as far as 2000. Some of them were afraid of them, they didn't know, but that we had to convince them that they wouldn't bite, and I wasn't an awful lot better myself, and we got the computer classes, and we are so glad that people like Philomena and loads of others are Skyping and went from strength to strength and knows more about computers than a lot of younger people. So anyway, thanks very much on my behalf for being so kind to me and saying these nice things, and I treasure the flowers. And I hope you'll all be partaking in all the classes for many more years.
Now we have food will be served now in a couple of minutes, but we have one or two formalities, photographs of the different speakers and all, and maybe on the front of the stage. So we'll call on people now, the volunteers with Positive Age, and we'll rely on, I take myself out of the loop altogether, we'll rely on our photographer, who was involved with SIRO from the very beginning, because he was one of the participants in the initial pilot, and he was very positive at the launch in the SIRO in Dublin. So we'll call upon, and the rest, the food will be served now in a couple of minutes, so hold on, and we'll organise that. Thank you. Oh, and I hope you brought your dancing shoes, because after the finger food and all that, there's music and dance. We have our singers and our dancers, so Maisie's going to take charge of that a little bit later after the food. So, yeah, thank you.
Like
hillside in Cavan, a place that is well known, where the daffodils blossom in woodlands evergreen, and the facing rocks and ridges on the mountains can be seen. So here's to you, dear Cavan, to me you'll always be my little home in Bradley, in the Isle of English free, where the sweet lovely king's home, up there to you I tell, 'tis heaven just to be there, to see her wishing well, and beautiful Sheila, oh youngest pride and joy, I hear her calling me each time that I pass by. So here's to you, dear Cavan, to me you'll always be my little home in Bradley, in the Isle of English free. So here's to you, dear Cavan, to me you'll always be my little home in Bradley, in the Isle of English
There's a welcome there for come on everybody, join in. If you're so long as you come from where there's a welcome on the map. If you come from the mouth of Oren, Market Lake so blue. We'll sing you a song, we'll make a fuss, wherever you are, you're one of us. If you're Irish, this is the place for you. Tipperary, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary. You're the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart lies there. From your troubles in your own thing, I am smile, smile, smile. Pack up your troubles in your own thing, I am smile, while glass the side. What's the use of worrying? It never was worthwhile. So pack up your troubles in your own thing, I am smile, smile, smile. Oh, take a long road, we're on the road to London. We're on the one road, take a long road, we'll work together now again. God bless something, come raise the Lord, Dublin, Belfast, Cork, and go. We're on the one road, sing along, sing the soldier's song. Oh, we have a promise now and then, now is the time to get them up again. Sure as we all Irish and proud, let's stick together, we're on the one road, take the long road, we're on the road till dawn.
Well, that's super. There you go. There you go.